This is the WWE NXT September 17, 2024 full show results video. NXT GM Ava Raine is in the ring and announced the card for the first NXT on CW and also introduces the participants of the NXT Championship match. The challenger Trick Williams is out first, and Williams jokes about Pete Dunne being a butch and how he won the last man standing match last week. Williams is going to make history when he wins back his NXT Championship, and the NXT champion and Paige interrupt. The crowd sings about Paige needing to put on some clothes, and Paige says he's Williams' kryptonite. Williams tells Paige he stole the championship from him, and Paige fires up about earning the championship. On October 1st, Paige promises to put an end to Williams and the era of ego will continue. Williams tries to respond, but Paige kicks him in the gut and hits the ego's edge through the table, and Paige walks away, but no one has signed the contract. Then we saw a match between Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley versus Rosemary and Wendy Chu, and the result of this match was Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley won the match by pinfall with a diving leg drop from Valkyria on Rosemary. No Quarter Catch crew are hanging out at backstage, and Charlie Dempsey congratulates Tavian Heights on his success in Japan and bids he and Miles Bourne go after the tag titles, and tells Ren Sinclair she should make a name for herself as well. The next match happened between Alexander Hammerstone versus Tony D'Angelo, and the result of this match was Alexander Hammerstone won the match by countout because Tony D'Angelo decided to walk away in the middle of match and post-match. The family are distraught and confused. Zachary Wentz jumps the rail and cuts a promo, and he says he and Trey Miguel were supposed to challenge for the tag titles last week but didn't, and he has video to show for it, and the tape plays and it's of Wes Lee attacking Trey Miguel in a parking lot. Wentz says Lee is a piece of garbage going to Miguel's hometown to attack him, and he deserves everything that's going to happen to him in Chicago. On October 1st, the pain he's going to put Wes through is going to be 10 times worse than what he did at No Mercy. Ava Raine is talking to Tyrese Halliburton backstage, and he promises to get the contract signed. Stevie Turner is skeptical. Robert Stone talks Halliburton up, but Tyrese doesn't know who he is and walks off with the contract. Back from the commercial, Fatal Influence are interviewed backstage, and JC Jane claims they just speak the truth and the other women in the locker room can't deal with it, and she's going to put Lola Vice in her place tonight. Fallon Henley takes offense to mention of Jada Parker, and they claim control of the division. Lola Vice reacts to that promo in the locker room. Jada Parker rolls up to tell her to keep her name out of her mouth. Lola says she doesn't want her help either, and she's got Fatal Influence tonight. Then we saw a match between Ashante the Adonis versus Eddie Thorpe, and the result of this match was Eddie Thorpe won the match by pinfall with an implant DDT. CM Punk makes his entrance and gets on the mic, and he says he's in a little bit of a different mood than he was last night, and last night he wanted to get the business out of the way. He says he recognizes some of the crowd because when he was rehabbing his tricep at the Performance Center, he'd hang out in the margins and watch the show, and folks would spot him. He likes watching the show and seeing the development of the superstars of the future, and of course there's some selfish scouting happening, and sometime in the future he'll butt heads with superstars like Lexus King, Carmelo Hayes, Ethan Page, and he's not trying to start any rumors, but sooner or later he's gonna be standing across from Braun Breaker. He was taking to J. Yvonne Evans before he came out here, and he has t-shirts older than Evans, and he loves NXT, and Shawn Michaels called him up because of that, and he said NXT would be in Chicago for the CW debut, and he begged to be part of it. And not only did he agree, that reckless 1995 Shawn came out and told Punk he could do whatever he wants on the show. So he came up with an idea that he thinks is pretty special, but Roxanne Perez interrupted him, theatrically looking at a bracelet like it's a watch. She's sorry to interrupt, and she'll let him get back to his big announcement, but all that aside, 13-year-old her would be freaking out right now sharing the ring with her favorite. She says he's one of the main reasons she's here in WWE, following in his footsteps, the voice of the voiceless. He was her voice, but she did always prefer his wife. The crowd takes the bait, and AJ chants go up, and she talks about how happy she was when he came back at Survivor Series after 10 years of waiting, and before she lets him get back to it, she wants to say she finally realized she should have been a Drew McIntyre fan. She says Drew is gonna end CM's career, but back to the important thing, which is her, and Punk asks if he can retort. She says she wasn't done yet, and she doesn't care how big Giulia is in Japan because she's big all around the globe, untouchable. A wise man once said he'd rather be hated for who he is than loved for who he isn't, and Punk says she's certainly on her way to being hated. He's not mad she came out here and stepped on his announcement. He loves it, and if anybody can appreciate an overconfident champion, it's him. He used to have a chip on his shoulder just like hers, and that chip is what made him the best in the world. That title is what makes her the best, and he was in Portland last night watching Io Sky and Bianca Belair tearing the house down and thought Roxanne would fit right in and might be better. But none of that's gonna matter when she gets her ass handed to her by Giulia in Chicago. He doesn't know Giulia and didn't come out here to talk about either of them, but why not talk about Giulia if it makes Perez so upset? Then comes Giulia and she tells Roxanne she has 2 weeks left and turns to leave, and Perez tries to attack, but Punk holds her back. Kalani Jordan is interviewed backstage and she says when it comes to fatal influence nobody's off limits, and Ren Sinclair runs up to slap her, citing Charlie Dempsey's pep talk about making a name for herself. Back from the commercial, the D'Angelo family are hanging out when Tony rolls up and they're fired up to go get Alexander Hammerstone, but D'Angelo doesn't want to and claims they're not thinking about all the angles and tells them everything is fine. Soon enough Adriana Rizzo gets it out of him, he's afraid. He's the Don and he's never supposed to back down from a fight, but it's different with Oba and he can't beat him. The next match happened between Cedric Alexander and J. Yvonne Evans versus No Quarter Catch Crew, and the result of this match was Cedric Alexander and J. Yvonne Evans won the match by pinfall with the double jump tornado from Evans on Miles Bourne. Commentary informs us that Randy Orton tweeted that he's going to be wrestling J. Yvonne Evans on the second CW show. The next match happened between Brooks Jensen versus Dion Lennox, and the result of this match was Brooks Jensen won the match by pinfall with a DDT. The next match happened between Jacy Jayne versus Lola Vice, and the result of this match was Lola Vice won the match by pinfall with a backfist. Post-match, Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix attack Lola and beat her down. Jada Parker makes the save but immediately ends up bickering with Vice as referees get between them. Adriana Rizzo chats with Tony D'Angelo backstage and says she's afraid too, and there's nothing wrong with being afraid, but Tony says he failed them. She says it doesn't matter what they think because when it's all said and done he'll always have the family. She sees what it's doing to him and she knows him and knows that he doesn't believe what he's saying and that he wants another shot at Oba. He admits he does and she gives him a pep talk. Tyrese Halliburton is in the ring to preside over the contract signing and shows the entirety of his basketball team and the crowd as his backup before introducing Trick Williams. Trick puts Tyrese over and calls all ego down on the threat of violence before signing the contract. Ethan Page comes and says he gave Williams an out, but he kept going, and if he wants to force him to sign this contract, he'll do it. He says when it comes to this title, Ethan Page is the Boston Celtics, and on October 1st when he beats Trick, he'll be like Tyrese's team watching him victorious. Page signs the contract and Halliburton puts Trick over before remembering he forgot something and calling for music. But then comes CM Punk and he remembered he had an announcement to make. Because a match this big isn't just about the title, it determines the direction the entire brand goes. Two very special athletes, very different men, completely different visions, a match that big needs something special. A match that big needs a special guest referee, and CM Punk is just that man. The only rule is gonna be you will listen to the official, and since he's the official, they can start fighting right now. They oblige Punk and start throwing hands until security comes down to try and separate them and the show goes off the air.